I really wanted to do a Final Fantasy XIV video, just talk about my experience with the game. It's something that I've put a lot of hours into. It's something I feel like talking about. Like, on this channel, I don't want to just do gameplay. I also want to do, also talk about like experience of games and stuff. And what better way to start than with Final Fantasy XIV, the absolute GOAT of MMOs. So Final Fantasy XIV is a game that has sucked up my life for the past year and a half. Maybe a little bit more. I think it's coming up to 2 years of me playing this game. If you're not familiar with this game, it's an MMO, meaning massive multiplayer online game, basically based around the Final Fantasy universe. I first started playing this game on the PS4, kind of on and off. I wasn't really like fully committed to playing it at the time. I think it was just before I built my first PC when I started dabbling in Final Fantasy. And then that's when I like fully just like dived in, committed, made a character, probably across 3 or 4 servers until I found the one that I stuck with. It is all I played, just Final Fantasy XIV. I would come home from work, I would play Final Fantasy XIV until I went to sleep. I'd wake up, go to work, and repeat. Sometimes I'd even wake up early before work just to play. And also I did book a week off of work because I needed to catch up with everyone because I was so far behind, and I like booked a week off just to like catch up. Work's all like, what's this week off for? And I'm like, bruh. Definitely not playing MMO. And before getting into any more about expansion, story, stuff like that, I only really paid attention up to Heavensward. Yeah, I know, it's bad, don't kill me, okay? I'm impatient, I want new gear, I want new content, and I want it now. However, I made a lot of friends through Final Fantasy XIV who are 100% committed to the fact that the story is sick as fuck. So I made an alt account to follow the story. I also changed the voice acting to Japanese, because voice acting in A Realm Reborn is kind of painful. I'm sorry, okay? It's not the best. So I changed it, just to make my life easier, I suppose. So if you haven't played before, but kind of dabbled or heavily played other MMOs, you may be wondering what the classes are like. And that's fine, because I'm here to tell you about my experience with the game. So I started off playing DPS. The DPS I decided to start off with was Lancer, which then becomes the job of Dragoon. After that, I knew I wanted to play something new, but I didn't want to play a healer, because I'm not reliable in any sense of the word. So healer was straight out the window. So I chose a gladiator, which then becomes a paladin, which is his job. So classes basically become jobs. Jobs are just more expanded versions of the classes, I suppose. Tanking in this game can be very nerve-wracking. I'm not gonna lie. You basically just say to yourself one day, fuck it, and jump in, and you just need to own it. That's the only way you can tank. If you're going to be nervous the whole time about tanking, you're just never going to tank. You just need to do it and not care what other people think. Because I had the same thing. I was terrified of tanking. I just didn't want to do it. And then I think I played with someone else who was a tank, and they were like, bro, just run and pull everything. So that's what I do now. I suppose a lot of people probably won't agree with that. I don't play tank as much as I would like to play tank, because I know a lot of super capable tanks. So when new content comes out, I prefer to get that clear. So I stay as DPS. I let the big boys and girls that I know who are very capable tanks take over, so we can get that clear. I may play tank later if we're farming it and I know the fight, or if we've done it early and someone else is going for the clear, then I will help. I've also started working more on my gatherers and crafters. That's also something that you can do in Final Fantasy. You can gather materials either through wildlife, fishing, and mining. You can use those items that you gather to make things with your crafters. They in themselves play completely different to the classes that you take into dungeons. It's much easier to craft now. Before it was a little bit much, in my opinion at least. I know other people think differently, but they have simplified crafting a hell of a lot. Another thing I want to touch on is the glams. So the outfits in the game. This is where the obsession really kicks in. For a lot of people, I think, especially with Final Fantasy XIV. You see someone with a cool weapon or outfit, and you're like, I want whatever that is. You might have to grind some content to get it, but it feels so rewarding once you get that piece or set you're after. One of the biggest things I enjoy about MMOs personally is the outfits. MMOs is just a fashion show for me. Personally, that's what it's all about. I don't even care if I have to kill a god to get a pair of shorts. Alright, I'm gonna do it. The combat in 14 is very rewarding. It feels fucking good to play. If I was to boil the combat down to its core, it's basically you keep your rotation going, which is your optimal move set to get the most damage going, whilst dodging floor AoEs. There'll be other things as well, like unique mechanics with each boss. And basically it's getting the mechanics correct so you don't all wipe. But I would say I've played a lot of MMOs, and I would say that the Final Fantasy XIV combat feels the most fluent to me. Sometimes the combat seems like a lot, and it definitely is when it comes to extremes or savages, which are basically the harder versions of bosses and raids. It can be very overwhelming doing that content. So there is like harder stuff, like harder content, if that's what you're looking for. If you're looking for a challenge, there's definitely something there for you. And if you're not, normal dungeons are normally quite a breeze. I'm going to touch on the things you can do in the world of Final Fantasy XIV, and we're also going to kind of skim over each one of the expansions and my personal experience with the expansions. So if you're playing for the first time, you're going to start off in a Realm Reborn, alright? Which has actually been shortened, so it's less grinding, unlike when I played, and it dragged on for 10 million years. It didn't put me off the game, because I was still having a lot of fun playing with the friends I'd made through the game, but this is where you will start off. Realm Reborn areas, they're okay. Personally, I think they're a little bit bleak compared to some of the other areas. But yeah, once you get through the long grueling task of Realm Reborn, which is no longer long and grueling, then you hit Heavensward. New areas, you can fly, dragons and shit, whole thing is fire, alright? So you're just gonna get an influx of new content and story of Heavensward. A lot of people say Heavensward is the expansion that really grips people and keeps them playing Final Fantasy as soon as they hit Heavensward. So after that, you hit Stormblood, which is more of an Eastern theme with some of my favorite side quest characters and areas. This is the expansion that was most current when I started playing. So when Stormblood was a thing, that's when I joined the FC, which is guilds I'm in now. It's where I met a lot of my friends who I've made through Final Fantasy. Stormblood is just good expansion for me personally, because that's when I started. I really enjoyed it. It was new, it's refreshing. Like I said, the areas, man, they are so insanely nice. 100%. A lot of people don't really care for Stormblood. A lot of people are like, hell yeah, Heavensward, Stormblood, and hell yeah, Shadowbringers. A lot of people don't have time for Stormblood, but I have all the time for Stormblood. That's my baby. And then you hit the big boy new expansion, Shadowbringers, which, if you follow anything of MMOs online, I'm sure you've been seeing everyone ranting and raving about the latest patch and the story that goes with it. Which, of course, I forgot to say that each one of these expansions bring new classes. You will not run out of stuff to do in Final Fantasy Online, I promise you, okay? There's a whole PvP section, which is extremely fleshed out. Me personally, I don't really care for PvP, but I will play it. I will do some of the PvPing, I suppose. There's also a card game, Triple Triad, which you probably heard of before if you're a fan of Final Fantasy. That's right, there's going to be a lot of things like that in this game. If you're a fan of Final Fantasy, or if you're a fan of any of the Final Fantasies, there's probably something in this game for you that when you see it, it will just blow your little mind. Trust me, it's happened to me on several occasions. There's also the Gold Saucer. Once again, probably heard of it if you're into Final Fantasy. There's a lot of crossovers in Final Fantasy, especially with other Final Fantasy games, like Final Fantasy XV. There was an event, there's a Dragon Quest event, there's a Yokai event, and lately there's been a crossover with Nier, which is absolutely just insanely fucking good. And then they released a second one, which was just outrageously good. It just blew the first one out of the water, in my opinion. But the good news is you can actually play for free up to level 60, with the Heaven's Ward expansion included. Personally, I think the game is incredible, and I just wanted to share my experiences with the game with you. I've played a lot of MMOs, and this one definitely stands out to me as the best one, in my opinion. It's something that I've always wanted to talk about. I wouldn't say I'm particularly good at the game, but I have a lot to say about it. I hope you can take something away from this, whether you're a player already or might be one soon. So, thanks for watching, take care, see you in the next video.